Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, kings and queens of the land. Good afternoon, the royals. Good afternoon, the liberated zones of Africa. Good afternoon to Burkina Faso under the leadership of President Ibrahim Traore. Salute to Mali under the leadership of President Asim Goita. Good afternoon to Niger under the leadership of President uh, Abdurrahman Tian. Good afternoon. All these are liberated zones under the French colonies. Good afternoon to KZN under the leadership of the MK party led by President Jacob Kelehlekisa Zuma. Good afternoon to KZN. With all the protocol observed, my name is Mnguni Mkonto. If you see a blurry kind of internet, it's not what normally is my internet working like. Every time when I go live, just to reduce the number of people who will be patiently watching, YouTube does the trick to, uh, or YouTube or whatsoever control the system, does the trick to reduce the number of people who will be watching. My name is Mngoni Mkonto. This is the Royal Opinion. Today we are talking about a very important, very critical question. In the Royal Opinion, we don't talk about gossips. We don't talk about things that has got no impact in the life of black people. We only talk about issues that would have material impact on black people, that is going to affect black people in one way or another, big or small. Today we are talking about the concept called Zumaism. 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 What is Zumaism, and where does the concept comes from? I want to talk about um, the normal operation, the system of operation, or the colonial system called democracy, have got as established structures in itself, has got established structures of control on itself. They've got way to deal with any dissent in the system. If you follow the system of the colonial master of democracy, you will never be able to break the system. What happened in Mozambique is a template of what has been happening in Africa, what has been happening across the world. When people go to elections and they decide to rob the elections, to rob the people's will in order to influence black people to go to the streets and protest against the elections. The process is the same always. It will be police and soldiers killing hundreds and hundreds of people, making a lot of people disappear, causing havoc to a lot of families. Vanesio Mondlane has returned to Mozambique after having gone from Mozambique to Europe for over a month. Having gone to Europe for over a month, he comes back as a hero. In Mozambique, he comes back to even cause more conflict, where black people are going to be alienated or black people are going to be killed, because that's how the system works. The system allows you to protest as long as you protest according to the order in which the system wants you to protest. So in Mozambique, what happened is, after the election, when people have protested, that is the template, that is what they do everywhere. Get the people, get the system to clamp down on them. This is what they did even in Kenya in the Gen Z protest. Get the people in the street, clamp them down, destroy as many families as you can, destroy as many people who are disagreeing with the system as you can. After alienating or eliminating a lot of people, then go back to the table. Let's go and talk and negotiate to form a government of national unity. Exactly the same system which was planned for South Africa. The same system was planned for South Africa if it wasn't for what we call the Zumaism. Zumaism is a concept which was started about 7 or 8 years ago, started by those who actually hate President Zuma, in order to characterize a system in which corruption is thriving. They call it Zumaism. They wanted to characterize Zumaism as a system in which corruption is thriving, while they were actually characterizing the system of African governance, the system of African solution for African people. Let me share this video so we can further discuss Zumaism.
For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashni Madli. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me today to discuss Breaking with Zumaism. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, firstly, can you tell us what is Zumaism?
What I try to say there is that we can't assume that it's obvious what it means to break with Zuma, which I call Zumaism, because I'm arguing it's not just a person, it's a system that comprises illegality like corruption, state capture, undermining of the policing and prosecuting service, all of these things, and enriching people who are close to Zuma. But I'm arguing that if you restrict it to that, you're ignoring a number of features and qualities that are very significant. In fact, a very significant part of the rise of Zuma to leadership in the ANC and the country was the rape trial. And that rape trial had a number of very significant parts which illustrate the qualities of Zumism. First of all, hyper-patriarchy. Even though he's found not guilty by the courts,
Okay, so this is Professor Raymond Suttner. Professor Raymond Suttner, after realizing that President Zuma is a scientist, President Zuma is using a particular system to lead people. He is basically not just leading, he's implementing a particular system of leadership. So the professor was not happy about what President Zuma was implementing, and he wanted the system to be stopped, in which he wrote an article called Breaking with Zumaism. And so this is what he's talking about, breaking with Zumaism. He's talking about, is defining Zumaism. They wanted, when they started the State Capture Commission, they wanted the State Capture Commission to actually, at the end of the day, define the concept of Zumaism, which is a system which President Zuma has implemented, is implementing as a system of governance for African governments. They wanted that concept to be termed a corrupt system, a corrupt kind of system that takes care of nepotism and that makes people who are close to power rich. But this is what capitalism is. Let's go on and hear what the enemies of President Zuma says Zumaism is. They wanted to define Zumaism as the
I
enemies.
have my doubts. And the way he conducted himself in the exchange with the woman referred to as Kwezi was very patriarchal, and it was endorsed by a judge who used classic secondary victimization ways of dealing with the complainant. But Zuma's way of defending himself was to resort to culture, a so-called Zulu culture, and he claimed that if a woman does this, that, and the other, if I don't engage in sex with her, she will accuse me of rape. Now, this is presented.
So this is what Professor defines as Zumaism, is a system in which corruption thrive, in which, according to him, rape thrive. This is how they wanted to define President Zuma. Andile Kitama took the concept of Zumaism and redefined it. He took the concept of Zumaism and redefined it. As I was giving the example about Mozambique, which has followed the system after immediately, which they have fallen to the trap, immediately after the election, what is expected is violence. what is expected from the people because they know they have robbed the elections. It's violence. So they've got systems in place to take care of violence. They will eliminate, they will kill, they will destroy, they will kidnap anyone who is descending from the powers that be. After doing that, they will call the opposition party to come and negotiate so that they form a government of national unity. After forming the government of national unity, then the next elections are coming. Everyone has got no appetite for protest in the next election. And then the white people continue to implement their will. That's how the system works. They don't mind reducing the population of black people by just killing them. President Zuma, with his wisdom, decided to say that black people should not protest against in South Africa, black people should not go to the street against the elections because President Zuma's wisdom tells him that people will only be killed, and then after the killings, then the enemy would continue to rule over the people. President Zuma wants to use the system of the enemy, the system which have been designed very tight, unusable for black people to take over using. There's actually two effective methods to take over power in the structure of the colonial master. The first one is through democratic method. The second one is through the coup, armed forces. President Zuma prefers the peaceful method. Zumaism is a system in which a non-violent approach is adopted to take over power from the enemies. So President Zuma said no to protest. President Zuma promised that he's going to take the case to court in order to find remedy about the elections. Because President Zuma was well aware that should black people go to the streets, what will happen? They are going to be killed. And after being killed, he will be called to come and form a government of national unity since there has been violence during the elections. And there won't be any appetite for violence in the next elections. Then the Democratic Alliance will continue and the white people will continue to rule over black people and they will continue to parade their victories over us. So through the Zumaism, the non-violent approach, when the system came to kidnap President Zuma without doing anything, when they kidnapped him to jail, when they abducted him, President Zuma to prison, President Zuma gave himself in just to save South Africa, just to ensure that the African government was ready, the South African police was ready to go to war. There was even an army in KZN to ambush President Zuma. They wanted to eliminate him there and there. So, but because of the approach of Zumaism, the approach of patience and waiting, his approach of the peaceful approach to each and every issue, using the same system to take over, but in a peaceful way. If you take over power through military intervention, we can say it's a good thing at the moment because Africa is disparate, but it's actually a non-sustainable kind of way to take over power. If you take over power using arms, you need to sustain your power using arms. If you take over power using the arms, it means you have to militarize the whole country. You have to militarize the people in order to defend your position or to defend the position of those who have taken the power. This may turn out to be something else for citizens because what will happen is you are building a militant, violent kind of country at the end of the day. More young people are going to be militarized in that country. When you are done fighting the war, it will be difficult to rehabilitate those people to become normal citizens, not militant. You will constantly have a problem with militants. You'll constantly have people rising against because the only thing they know is fighting. It's well and good taking over, but can it be sustained? The concept of Zumaism is taking over power using the soft power approach. President Zuma says no insult to anyone who insults you. No insults or no negative response to anyone who decides to attack you. So the method that President Zuma has adapted in order to take over power, it's a method of peace and method of uniting black people to take over power from the enemy using the majority. It's a method President Zuma did not adapt this method because he's coward. President Zuma is one of the bravest people in Africa or in the world. But he adapts this method because he understands this way, when you take over power this way, it's going to be sustainable. You won't have to militarize anybody and you won't have to rehabilitate anybody after the war. You won't have to kill anybody or you won't have to confront anybody. Everything you do it peacefully. Burning of things, burning of infrastructure, burning of schools or churches will not bring liberation to black people. Uniting and forming a majority, uniting and forming an organization which is going to take over power as black people are in majority is a very, very powerful soft power. Is an approach uh, which the white people have never thought anyone could even dare try to use that approach. Because this approach, they have dealt with it a long time ago. They have seen that this could be dangerous. And they have divided black people into classes. Black people can realize every black person across the world does agree that black people are in suffering. Every black people in South Africa does agree that black people in South Africa are in suffering. But black people cannot agree on the solution on how to take out black people from suffering, because black people have been divided. We have been divided into classes. We have been corrupted by the white system. We've been made to be dependent in the system. We've been made to get stuck in the system. We depend in the system for food. We depend in the system for life. And outside the matrix, there's no life. Outside the system, there's no life, according to a lot of people. So President Zuma wants to change South Africa to in favor of black people. He wants to change the constitution of South Africa to allow traditional leaders to be the most superior people or the upper parliament of South Africa. He wants traditional healers or traditional doctors to have the same status as the white system doctors, whom their job is actually to distribute the pharmaceutical mafia drugs, because the pharmaceutical mafia is selling drugs. Most people think people are sick, but most people are not sick. Most people are addicted to drugs. When they did not take those pills for high blood, they get mixed up. When they did not get those pills for sugar diabetes, they get mixed up because they are addicted to the drugs. The body does not know whether the drugs is legal or illegal. Drugs are drugs in the body. So Zumaism is a concept which will respect the African people and their traditions and their way of healing themselves, their way of health, their way of schooling, their way of politics, their way of running politics. This is a reset, but a reset to the African tradition kind of government. This is what is Zumaism, and this is what white people does not want people to know, and they wanted to corrupt the concept of Zumaism so that nobody would ever dare to think to follow Zumaism in anywhere across the world. This is the concept. The reason President Zuma is a superior leader of black people is precisely because of this kind of concepts, this kind of science of leadership. President Zuma is using science in his leadership. White people are aware that he's using Zumaism, which has to be established and has to be studied by young people. Zumaism, it's a system of governance, a system of behavior, a system of a way of life, the restoration of the African civilization. Basically, it's what Zuma stands for, the restoration of the African civilization as it was. That's what we call Zumaism. Give us your opinion. Tell us what you think about Zumaism. Tell us what you think about the issues that are happening in Mozambique at the moment. Vanesio Mondlane came out and paraded and declared himself as the state president. But at the end of the day, what is going to happen is they will form a government of national unity. That's what was the approach even in South Africa. But they wanted to form this government of national unity after some violence. So President Zuma has stopped their plan of creating the violence and uh, forming the government of national unity because of that violence. So they had to form the government of national unity in South Africa without violence because President Zuma said no to the violence. So this is what we call Zumaism, the approach, a non-violent approach to power at which you want to change all the systems that the colonial master has put in place without using guns, without using wars, without killing the enemies, without losing your soldiers. That is Zumaism, the peaceful approach to taking over power is Zumaism. This is sustainable because after taking over power, the peace can be sustained. But if you take by the gun, then you will have to sustain the peace by the gun. It will depend on whether you still have the strongest gun. For as long as you still have the strongest gun, you're going to stay in power. But one day, if somebody else comes with the strongest gun, they're going to throw you out from your own country. So this is a sustainable approach, the approach of unity, the approach of traveling the road of unity. Black people have been massively divided. This approach is deemed impossible by the colonial masters, but President Zuma has dared to take the approach of unity to achieve victory for black people. Is this approach going to help South Africa and also help the whole African continent? Only time will tell. Is this concept going to be adapted by other African governments after President Zuma has taken over to rule over South Africa again? Or is this kind of system going to be suppressed and be shown the doors by the fanatics, the white fanatics who have committed genocide? The first genocide they've committed in South Africa is in Cape Town, committing genocide to the black people they found there, decided to characterize them as the Bushmen. No leadership, no leaders are talking about the Bushmen now because the Bushman is not there to vote for them. So another human being, just like me and you, they decided to call him a Bushman and eliminated all of those people who were existing in South Africa at that time, so that there's no one to tell the story and there's no one to claim their land. Thoroughly defeated, defeating people in their own land. Out of all this, President Zuma says, let us be peaceful and only approach them using our majority. This is the reason why black people should follow and support President Zuma, because of the concept of Zumaism. Zumaism is the way of Africa. Thank you very much. Give us your comment. Tell us what you think about Zumaism and what other approaches that can be added in your own opinion as part of Zumaism. Thank you very much.